Hey guys, welcome to another session of the Leading with Style Virtual Summit. My name is David McKnight and I am your host. Today I have a special guest who I'm very excited to be speaking with. I think he has a lot of great information to share with you. His name is Tanmay Manohar. Tanmay is an executive at a Fortune 500 media company, Viacom. And so today we're going to be talking about how you can fast track your career. I'm sure that a lot of you out there are perhaps working in corporate America and you're looking for ways to really stand out from the competition and be able to fast track your career. So Tanmay is someone who has done that exceptionally well, and to be, I think, about the age of 30 and who's already an executive at a Fortune 500 company, I think he's definitely qualified to speak on this subject. So Tanmay, I'd like to welcome you to the virtual summit.
David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. And why don't you start by just telling everyone a little bit about yourself and your story of how you got to where you are.
Sure. So at the very beginning, I was born in India. I grew up in Australia. I actually moved there when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Grew up there, went to high school in Pittsburgh. My family moved to the US. Went to college at Johns Hopkins University. I did a double major in biomedical engineering and applied math and statistics, and had a minor in entrepreneurship and management. So I think a lot of times, especially with immigrant parents, there's a big push to think about medicine or engineering or things like that. I did both of them with biomedical engineering.
Wow,
and
impressive.
so I knew that also being the oldest in my family, we didn't really have a lot of opportunity to take risks with my career when I was graduating from high school and going to college. So I knew that if I wanted to explore different types of careers, different fields, think about what I really wanted to do, it was going to be up to me to chart my own career path. So after college, during college, I realized that going strictly into medicine wasn't for me. So I went into consulting. Actually, I joined one of the largest consulting companies in the world, Accenture. And
I also worked at Accenture.
Also worked at Accenture. And so I worked there for 4 years. I was working in a number of different industries, but primarily pharmaceuticals and medical technology. So drawing on my experience from undergrad, but using what I had learned as part of my business minor to help companies solve problems, essentially. And I was working a lot in marketing and marketing analytics and strategy specifically. So helping pharmaceutical companies when, let's say, they had a drug that was going off patent and there was going to be a patent cliff, they were going to lose market share, coming up with strategies to help them retain market share once generics started coming into the market. Realized that I was hitting a plateau after I got promoted to consultant, and knew I had to go back because my business minor, while it gave me a very good foundation, wasn't enough to get me to the next level. So went to business school. I went to the Yale School of Management, did my MBA there. During my time there, interned at Viacom. So for those of you who don't know, Viacom includes MTV, Nickelodeon, Paramount Pictures, BET, Paramount Network, Comedy Central, all kinds of different amazing channels and networks. And we have an extremely global footprint. I started there doing social media analytics, helping essentially our advertising clients figure out which social media influencers to cast in our marketing campaigns, our integrated marketing campaigns, and then moved into what I do now, which is people analytics. So essentially thinking about our employees as our customers, and using the data and information we have to be a detective in the workplace to see how to make our workplace more exciting and engaging, and to retain talent, retain employees, attract the best people. Think about diversity and inclusion, mentoring, leadership, promotions, all of those things. So I've been doing that I've been at Viacom for a couple of years now, post my MBA, and I started in this new field that I have basically started this function at Viacom about 8 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, I mean, you have a very impressive background, and you are obviously very intelligent, very smart, and you've done very well at the organizations that you've worked with, both Fortune 500 companies, blue chip organizations. Apart from the education and having a stellar background from an academic perspective, what are some of the things that you think have set you apart from your peers in order to have you really elevate your career path and really accelerate it?
Sure.
I know that rapport was one of the things that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
How important do you think rapport is, and are there other kind of softer skills or some of those intangible elements that have helped you get to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think relationships drive everything. The relationships you have with other people outside of work, at work, are so incredibly important, because when you think about opportunities that might arise, right? Who is it going to go to? It's the person that's memorable.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to think about is being memorable within an organization or within a friends group or anything that you're a part of. You want to strive to not just be known as nice. I think that adjective is probably one that shows that you don't know what that person stands for.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how's David? Oh, he's nice, right? It doesn't share anything, right? If I instead said, oh, he's warm, he's inviting, he's caring, he's nurturing, welcoming, those are all things that in someone's mind, it paints a picture of how that person is.
Sure.
And so a lot of times, I think we, don't say things or don't put ourselves out there for maybe fear of not being accepted or things like that. But it's really about, owning who you are and building that part of your brand and your image. So when you think about how kind of rapport develops, a lot of times when I'm at work, a lot of the time, the first thing people notice about me is the way I'm dressed.
Yeah, he's always dressed impeccably.
Thank you. Yourself too.
Oh,
when I think about how I'm perceived at work, as an example, at Viacom, we don't have a strict dress code. It's essentially up to employees to determine what's comfortable and professional for them. And so you'll see people, on the MTV floor wearing 80s rock band t-shirts and jeans, or you'll see people wearing kind of all kinds of things, and this is what I'm comfortable in. And when people see that and they ask me, oh, why do you dress like that, or like you don't have to dress like that, or things like things like that, or you go into an interview thing. When I think about it, I say that, look, you know what, when I grew up, I played cricket, and there was a really big sense of dressing well. You had to be in uniform. I got called out when I was playing, when I was 10 years old, and my coach called me out in front of the whole team for not having a properly ironed uniform, and I felt so embarrassed that's when I learned how to iron, and I've ironed my clothes ever since. But it's a way that I show respect to people that I'm working with by taking care of myself, grooming myself well, and dressing in a way that is comfortable for me, but is also presentable. It doesn't necessarily mean in a three-piece suit like I am today, but just being presentable. And so when people see that, that's what they associate with me. And so I have that brand at Viacom. So when you think about, getting ahead or fast tracking your career, guess who gets asked whenever there's an opportunity to do some sort of corporate photo shoot, or there's an event that we need some representation at. The C-suite and the highest level of executives are going to think of, oh, Tanmay's well dressed. I know that I can put him in front of clients or put him in front of other people or be, you know, the face of a company, and that he's not going to embarrass us, that he's going to do us proud. So when I establish rapport with people, I think about how am I presenting myself in a way that will be memorable to them, not aggressive or intimidating or anything like that, but presenting myself in a way that they're going to remember something specific about me, and then I always make sure that I remember something specific about them too. And so it's that kind of give and take when you think about building rapport. You know, identifying something that means a lot to that person, and then always associating that in your mind, and so you can use that to your advantage to build that relationship with other people.
Got it. So there are two things that I took from what you just shared, which was great, by the way. Number one is definitely being memorable, and I think there's two ways to be memorable. One is obviously positive, which is what we want to do. The other way is you can actually be memorable because of something very negative. And we want to definitely stay away from the negative territory. So that whole concept of being memorable. But the other thing that you hit on is the relationship aspect, and really being able to develop a rapport and a deep, meaningful relationship with someone. It could be a peer, it could be maybe someone who's above you, and that's how you're really going to kind of start to take those steps to get ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's when you think about it, it's doing something, giving something before you take something or ask for something in exchange. Right. You know, it's one of the best ways to build that sort of relationship. So when I'm thinking about maybe working with people I haven't before, and that happens all the time, especially in the corporate world. You know, maybe you're asked to start a new client or join a new team or interact with people you don't know yet. And they may be distrusting of you because you're brand new to that initiative or group or company or whatever it might be. Right. And so when you go in there, kind of suspending your ego, checking your ego at the door, and going in and seeing how can I be helpful, right? Asking other people, what would you like, right? What's important to you? You know, I'm working on this initiative, and how can I make sure that your opinions are heard? And that I'm taking into account, and how can I best communicate this back with you? Yeah. Because I think it's not about treating people how you want to be treated. It's treating people how they want to be treated.
Yeah, and I think this is such an important point, and I do want to really just kind of drill into this a little bit. In fact, I want to share an example of someone that I was recently coaching. She's a young executive, she's a millennial, and she's definitely on the fast track, and she's very aggressive with her career, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But in coaching her, one of the things that I've been helping her to realize and understand is that, yes, you're really smart, you're really good in your function and in your role, but you need to really make other people feel like they're a part of the process. And so we've been working on ways for her to really solicit ideas from her team, to really not make it just all about her and positioning her as the smartest person in the room. It's important to, as you mentioned, to acknowledge others and to really be inviting and to really help them to feel like they're included in the process. Yeah. Has that been helpful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you join a new team, I think there's always a natural instinct to want to prove yourself. Yeah. And I think that's the case for most people who are driven in some way, right? That they want to come out right out of the gate and not come across as like, oh, they don't know what they're doing or anything like that. And so there's a tendency to overcompensate by attracting all the attention to you, and not recognizing other people or making other people feel included, or giving your time to other people, sharing things. So, knowledge is power, and oftentimes there's a tendency for people to hold on to what they're an expert at, so that no one, you're the go-to for that particular thing. But the double-edged sword there is that if you become too well known for that one thing, it's going to be really hard for you to let go of that and move to the next level. Because when executives are thinking about how to groom employees for leadership, at a certain point you want to be fairly well-rounded, right? If you've come up in a company in, say, the finance part of the organization, at a certain level, if you're on your way to become CFO, the CFO has to know about sales figures. So also has to really know well about the sales organization as well, and what are they doing about strategy, about law, because guess what, if you're a publicly traded company and you're reporting to the street, you're going to get grilled on all different parts of your company, on your marketing, on if you have live events like we do. You're going to need to know more than just your area of expertise. And if you're not willing to share that with other people and show that yes, you are amazing at it, but you're also willing to teach other people and grow other people to take over your role so that you can get to the next thing, it's not going to really showcase your candidacy for moving up in your career.
And that's so important as you are moving up and as you are looking to get to that next level, whether it's a management position or an executive position or senior executive position. I think that a lot of times when someone is just entering the workforce, it's important for that person to really be good in the particular subject matter that they're working on. And that's great. I think that's really step one, to really be very competent in the particular function that you're assigned to or that you've chosen. But then once you're ready to get to that next level, it's really important to start showing and demonstrating an understanding of the breadth of the organization. So you're not just good at HR or finance or what have you, but now you're able to have conversations about sales and about marketing or what have you, operations. And so I think that's a really good point. But again, I would really want to emphasize that step one, especially for those of you who are junior in your career, make sure that you master the domain that you're working in. And then from there, as you mentioned, you start to expand and broaden your knowledge base.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times people say like fake it till you make it and stuff. And why? Just learn it and do it, right? It's like, how long do you expect to be faking it, right? Just like, especially with the availability of information these days. I mean, you can learn almost anything on YouTube. I mean, Khan Academy, all types of access to information is so fast. You can pretty much become an expert overnight in a lot of different areas. So why fake it till you make it? Just do it and then make it, right? Like if you're interested, if you're working on a particular area of expertise, right? Get that foundation, start doing things. No one expects you to be the absolute best as soon as you join. There's always a ramp up period. So don't worry about that. That's part of just learning. You also need to be flexible and to take accountability for when things go wrong. I mean, that's a huge part of when good companies think about how they're going to grow their leaders. If you have someone who is not able to take accountability for things when they go wrong, they're not going to be a very good leader, because as a leader, the buck stops with you. Right. Yes, you give your team credit, and when you do a good job, you also bask in that reflected glory. But when things go wrong, people are looking at you. That's why you're probably paid the most. That's probably why you have a lot of experience. You're in a position of status where people are looking to you to take responsibility. And the part to really know about that is when you are taking accountability for something, it's not because of a character flaw, right? If something happened that you did your diligence and anyone in that situation could have made the same mistake, that's fine. There's no need to worry, or even if that happens to someone else, don't punish them for it. Use that as a coaching moment to grow them, right? Because it's not something that is an inherent character flaw that they will always go out and insult a client or something like that. It's a situation where maybe they did something wrong, but under the circumstances, that might have happened to anyone.
Yeah.
And so part of being able to move up in an organization is to be able to show that not only are you taking accountability, but you're a really good coach to other people, right? You're trying to assume the best intentions from other people.
I love that. That's a really important point, and I love the fact that you mentioned being a coach, because that's so important. And if you can coach others, even though they may not necessarily be junior or senior, but just being able to coach anyone at any time is, I think, a great skill. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people really think about or even focus on. So I do want to switch topics for a second. And I want to talk about this idea of changing careers, whether it's an industry or a particular function, because I do recognize and acknowledge that sometimes if you're doing something for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years or longer, you sort of get bored and you think about, what else can I do? What else should I do? What else would I like to do? And for those people out there who might be thinking about switching careers, what are some tips and strategies for switching careers effectively? And I think in addition to that, is it always necessary to go back and get another degree, an MBA or an MS in finance or what have you, in order to make that transition?
Yeah. So when we think about for switching industries, yes, a lot of times, you get bored after a couple of years of doing the same thing. And I want to separate out these two types of boredom, where there's one where you really dislike your job, the frustration type of boredom. And I heard a saying that if your spirit leaves work, take your body with you. And I really like that. Because I feel that you bring the fun with you to work, right? If you are not enjoying it, find ways to make it fun. Not 100% of your role or your job is never going to be amazing, right? But find ways to make it more enjoyable. So that's like one side of things. So that's if you're like just really frustrated with your career, industry, whatever, then change it. The other part is, what if you plateaued in your career? So you still enjoy it, but you're looking for something a little bit different. Something fresh to liven it up. And so when you think about taking on new opportunities, it's a very stressful decision to think about, okay, do I want to actually switch industries or switch functions or things like that? I would recommend to only switch one at a time. So I did probably one of the most epic career switches of going from pharmaceutical marketing consulting to now essentially being in HR in TV and film. And if I had tried to make that leap directly, it would have been a really, really tough sell.
I love that. That's so important, and I've never really actually heard it positioned that way. Switching one at a time, whether it's the industry or the function. So what you're saying is, let's say you work in HR, or you work in consulting, and within consulting, your focus or your specialty is HR operations or what have you. Well, then maybe switching to a different industry, but working within the HR function before you try to venture into another function. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, effectively, yes. So when I did my MBA, I got my internship at Viacom, and I used my expertise in marketing analytics to essentially join the data strategy group at Viacom. And then once I got there, again, I proved myself. I was highly competent in that area. I created a product for them from scratch over my summer internship. And then when I came back, I joined again in social media analytics, which was still part of the marketing background that I had.
Sure.
But then I started to, take on different types of initiatives and work on culture initiatives, things like that. And that led to our HR organization reaching out and saying, hey, I know you're really good at analytics. Can you help us with that work on a few projects? So that way I was able to go first from pharma marketing to media and entertainment marketing, and then media and entertainment HR. So using each of those levers one at a time. Yeah, how did you find it actually? Because you're also have come from consulting as well. How did that journey happen for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I think that in terms of consulting, as you very well know, as a consultant, you develop a very broad range of skills. And that's why a lot of Fortune 500 organizations really gravitate towards hiring consultants. In fact, if you look at many of the job descriptions, they'll say something like management consulting experience preferred.
Sure.
Because they know that as management consultants, we're very flexible and we can easily adapt to various environments. But I will say that once I transitioned from consulting and I was recently working in financial services, I took a role, I left a consulting firm, took a role in Fortune 500 corporate America, and the role was a little junior than what I was anticipating or hoping for. But it was a great organization and it was huge, global, lots of opportunities. And so as you mentioned, my strategy was, let me just get my foot in the door.
Sure.
I'll take this role that's a slight step down and prove myself. And within 3 years, I had 3 promotions. Within 5 years, I was sitting as a global head. And so I think it's important, as you mentioned, to get your foot in the door, think about sort of a simple way to make that transition. And then once you're there, you use all of the strategies that you've spoken about, developing relationships, building rapport. I think it's important to make sure that emotional intelligence is a part of who you are and how you're showing up. It's so very important.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just really focus on demonstrating their intellect, their smartness.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than you, or what have you, and that's really not the right way.
Yeah.
I think it's important to lean into some of the softer skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had asked about education and the importance of that, or the necessity of that to switch, and I actually felt that my classes during my MBA around interpersonal dynamics, around power and politics, strategic communication, influence and persuasion, all of those more social psychology oriented classes were vastly more helpful than the content oriented classes of the finance and marketing and things like that. I found that those skills are ones that I'm using every day in terms of building rapport, like staying on my side of the net, which essentially means when you think about when you say something, you have an intent, but the other person feels the impact. And how often do you hear things where people project onto other people something like your ex, or I feel that you're not listening to me, or they hide or mask things behind the I feel statement, right? If you say I feel and then you use the word that, you're not describing a feeling. Okay. Whatever comes after it is not a feeling.
So what
I feel that you're being a jerk, right? Okay. Not a feeling. You're just insulting the other person.
Okay.
Versus, I'm feeling upset,
guys.
or I'm feeling, sad, or I'm feeling excluded, I'm feeling happy, ecstatic, joyous, whatever. Those are ways that you can better express yourself, right? And then when you say, I'm not feeling happy because of XYZ experience that I had in the past, that's made me sensitive to situations where other people are talking loudly and I don't speak very loudly, then okay, great. Other people can now understand where you're coming from, rather than you saying something like, you're all talking over me, or, you know, because that might not be their intent, right? The impact on you is something, the intent that they had is something. So whenever you're talking to someone, really try to disassociate the intent and the impact, and understand that each of you has one side of the net, and don't cross over, because it leads to a lot of misunderstandings.
Oh, this is so good. I love this. And I just want to go back to the distinction that you just shared, which I got, and make sure that the audience got it as well. So when you're saying I feel, it's important to just kind of embrace that feeling, acknowledge it, and just say I feel X. I feel hurt, I feel embarrassed, I feel whatever, versus I feel that, because then it's more of a deflection.
Yeah.
And you're deflecting onto the other person or another situation.
Yeah, and
That's great. I
using
love that.
it takes practice, right? Because you may not go into your boss's office and say, I feel sad that X, Y, Z, right? There's a time and a place to use these, and that's really what my education helped me with, is it gave me a safe space to practice that without consequence, because everyone knew what we were practicing. Right? It would be really tough for you to go to, you know, your partner or spouse or whoever and start like practicing these kind of things without them knowing what's going on, right? And so, you know, education, it's a wonderful thing. It's not enough. Right? It gives you a wonderful foundation. It can give you a lot of opportunities to network. It gives you the knowledge, the skills base, but you then have to apply it, take it one step further.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm working with clients, coaching clients, and let's say they're interviewing for jobs, I always tell them that your education and your resume, yes, that might get you into the door, but it's not going to get you to the top.
Yeah,
and
that's a great way of...
I think that what gets you to the top and gets you some of the exposure and the broader opportunities that you've had as an executive are those softer skills, the communication skills, the leadership skills, and being able to make people feel comfortable and feel included and feel welcomed. So many times we just focus on the hard skills. It's not enough, guys, just to focus on the hard skills. We need to really think about some of the softer skills as well. Now, I do want to move on to one other quick point, and I know that we're running out of time. Thank you so much for your time today, by the way.
Absolutely.
How important is dressing and attire in this whole kind of grand scheme of career acceleration and progress?
Yep, it's incredibly important, because I do style coaching, and I help men essentially be more expressive and confident in the way that they dress. And when I think about an approach to style, specifically when you're thinking about your career, really try to use it as an opportunity to understand the culture of the organization that you're joining, right? Or the organization that you're setting, if you yourself are an entrepreneur and are starting a company, right? There were some companies where they were so far into the suits are bad, ties are evil kind of side of the fence, that I knew it wasn't going to be a good fit for me. Because it's not a good culture fit, right? If you're going to make fun of me because of the way I dress, or not think I'm competent, or make assumptions because of how I like to dress, it's not going to be a good culture fit. And some of these companies were companies that people are clamoring to get hired by, right? But I knew that it's not the right fit for me, because it's not reflective of my own values and my own culture. And so use that part of your interview as an opportunity to understand how style and how the way you present yourself generally plays into the values of that company.
I think this is so important, and I love that you said that. And what I'm really appreciating from this conversation, and hopefully you guys are getting it as well, is that yes, you're a millennial, and let's acknowledge the fact that we are moving more and more towards a casual business environment, business
Sure.
world. I mean, look at Goldman Sachs and their recent announcement early last month. And so that was pretty shocking to a lot of people. But when I really thought about it, it's not so surprising because a lot of millennials do want to, and they prefer the more casual environment. But I love the fact that you love to dress up, you really enjoy wearing a suit, you look great in a suit, and you own that, and it's an important part of who you are. And so when you're looking at opportunities and you're looking at organizations, you want an organization that will appreciate that,
Yeah.
will embrace it, and not make you feel like
Yeah.
you're different or
Exactly.
you're an outsider.
Yeah. It's not
So I
dressing
love
up
that.
if that's
Yeah.
the way you dress. Right?
Absolutely.
If you dress like
Yeah.
that, it's not dressing up. I think a lot of times people have something in their mind of like, oh, I'm dressing up. I'm wearing something that I don't normally wear. I'm wearing this like false skin.
Yeah,
but this is how I dress. So
Yeah.
I'm not playing dress up. I just get dressed in the morning. And
That's
so
great.
I love being part of an organization that's cool with that. That they're
Awesome.
like, look, we want to reflect our audience and you're part of it. And so dress that way if that's how you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. So guys, if you really enjoy dressing up and you work in a more casual environment, you might not necessarily choose to wear a three-piece suit, which totally I understand. But if you really enjoy throwing on a blazer or wearing a nice button down, then go for it. Don't feel that you have to really, I guess, almost dim down your desire to dress really elegantly just because of where you're working. But let me actually throw this into the mix as just a devil's advocate point of view. What about creating a barrier? Do you find that people can create distance or a barrier with others if they're maybe dressed too formally and it's a casual environment?
It's about how you wear it. Right,
Yeah.
and if there's an established dress code, then of course follow that. Right,
Yeah.
I'm not going to show up to a summer barbecue in a three-piece suit. Right, that would be crazy.
It's about being appropriate.
Yeah, it's about being appropriate. Right.
Yeah.
There are ways to look amazing with
Yeah.
a t-shirt, jeans, and boots.
Absolutely.
I mean, I actually love wearing leather jackets. When I'm not in the office, and it's a rugged look. Right, so. There are a lot of different ways you can still look stylish, sharp, have authority, have power, but it's how you wear it. If you don't wear that normally and you look stiff and you feel stiff wearing
Absolutely.
it, you're going to give off that vibe, and other people aren't going to feel welcomed by it because they can sense how uncomfortable you are and they don't want to make you more uncomfortable, right? But if you're owning it and you roll up to a place, wearing a tie or wearing something and trying something new, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this today, I'm trying it out.
Yeah.
Fine, people will sense your enthusiasm, and the people that you want to be associated with will encourage that and know and understand and support you.
Awesome. Well, again, I know you're a busy guy and you've got some places to be and some things to do. So last question, I want to make this more of a rapid fire question. If you can leave the audience with 3 tactical tips on how they can accelerate their career, what are those 3 tactical tips, briefly, that you'd like to leave with the audience?
Yep. I'd say 1, find or develop a high status interest or hobby. What that means, it used to be golf. In a lot of places it still is. I don't like golf, right? However, I like watches, and that's something that I found a lot of executives in their career also enjoy, right? Mechanical timepieces. Given my engineering background, it's just something I'm drawn to.
Right.
And so that's something that really helps me, again, to the point of rapport, like build an instant connection with people that, oh, that's a cool watch, where's it from? And start talking about it. It could be a particular sport for you. It could be fashion. It could be arts, any kind of thing, right? If you like theater, right? Talking about that. But it's a great way to build connection with people who are potentially much more senior to you within a company, that you otherwise might not have had an elevator pitch or something to introduce yourself with. But if you notice something that they're interested in, or you have something, it has to be genuine. Don't fake it. But if you have something genuine, find that high status interest and
Love it.
get interested in it and use it as an icebreaker. It's amazing.
So guys, find a high status interest.
Yeah, absolutely. The second would be to volunteer for initiatives that are tangential to what you're working on, or tangential to something you're interested in getting into. So the example of me getting into HR, it was because I had volunteered for culture initiatives that I became exposed to the HR team, and then they came and asked me, hey, would you help with these projects that we're working on?
Yeah.
And that led to me actually joining the HR organization.
Wow.
So it's your weak ties, not your really strong ties in a network that lead to the best opportunities. Because the people who you really spend most of your time with, they're probably in the same area, function, team, group as you are. So they're not likely to give you the opportunities to grow and expand. So volunteer for things outside of just what you're working on, and it's a great way to make connections that will help you fast track your career.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I guess one more thing, to the point of, again, is education, necessary or worth it? Really think about personal finance, right? If you haven't learned about it yet, there are plenty of sources to find, help online. I mean, Dave Ramsey, there are plenty of YouTube channels that, radio shows, all kinds of things that will help you with that. But oftentimes even in school, we're not taught to really think about ROI in that way, right? We make a lot of risky emotional decisions just as humans. And when you think about, is it worth it to go into debt for like $200,000 in order to get a $40,000 job out of school? I don't think so. And it's not necessary to do those types of things to get ahead, especially if your definition of success is being debt-free or being financially confident or things like that. Then really, really think about personal finance, because it's an aspect of business and of getting ahead that people really ignore, right? You get the promotion and then you blow your bonus on a thing that then depreciates in value, rather than buying an asset or saving it or something else, right? So
awesome.
That's an aspect that it's not talked about a lot as you grow in your career, but you really need to keep an eye on it.
Great. Well, there you have it, 3 tactical tips that you can take and that you can pursue in order to elevate your career. And just to quickly summarize, I think you said the first one is developing a high status interest. The second one is volunteering for some type of tangential opportunity. And I love how you positioned it as kind of strong ties and weak ties. And sometimes it's those weak ties that can lead to big opportunities for you. And then the third and final tip or strategy is around personal finance and making sure that you really have a handle on your personal finance or finances, and you're really clear with the goals that you have in place for yourself. So this has been great. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure that the audience got a lot of value out of it. Now, just as some final closing comments, let everyone know what you're up to, how they can reach out to you. I know you mentioned style coaching.
Sure.
If that's something that you're still doing on the side, feel free to let our audience know.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you'd like to find me, you can either find me at my website, www.tanmay.com. It's where I do style coaching. So if you're interested in learning how to dress for success, whether it's to get an interview or that next promotion, or even something like going on a date, if you want to feel more confident and expressive in the way you dress, you can find me there. Otherwise, I'm also on LinkedIn. And if that's something you're thinking about to switch your career, amp up your LinkedIn profile, because you start to get so many inbound emails for roles. I think it's a tool that people often neglect.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for having me.
Excellent.
I appreciate it, David.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you soon.